playing.
And welcome to Time About the Movies, everybody. Today we are taking a look at the 3 films that make up July 10th, 2015. And we start off with, surprisingly, one of the few Illumination movies early on that I kind of enjoyed. And believe it or not, it's the one that features the Minions, simply titled The Minions, which is basically a spin-off, but mostly a prequel spin-off to the Despicable Me franchise, which I haven't been the biggest fan of. I've never really liked those movies in particular. They're not bad movies, they're just mostly bland, and probably my favorite one of the bunch is Despicable Me 3, but mostly because they brought Trey Parker in to play the villain in that. He was pretty awesome in that, but that's still a couple of years away. But this is Minions, and like I said, it's a prequel where ever since the dawn of time, the Minions have lived to serve the most despicable of masters. From T-Rex to Napoleon, the easily distracted tribe has helped the biggest and the baddest of villains. Now join protective leader Kevin, teenage rebel Stuart, and lovable little Bob on a global road trip where they'll earn a shot to work for a new boss, the world's first female supervillain, and try to save all of Minion kind from annihilation. And like I said, looking at the previous Minions Despicable Me movies, I've never been the biggest fan of them. I've always thought they were just okay films. I did like the Minions, though. I thought they were funny. They were good. They were basically the Scrat to the Despicable Me series. They were funny. They were good comic relief in general, and they did a solid laughs over the course of those 2 films. So when I heard they were going to do a movie about this, I honestly didn't think it could work. I mean, how do you take a character that has a language you can't really understand and make it work as a solo film? I mean, I even did my Minions review originally in Minionese, which I was going to do it for this, but yeah, there's no way I'm going to redo the entire review in Minionese. So if you want to go read my original review of that, I'll leave a link to it down below. But much to my surprise, this was probably my favorite Illumination movie they had done up to that point. They actually found a way to make the movie work by giving these guys a great story to work off of and still find a way to make these characters themselves likable and funny without the jokes getting predictable or stale. I mean, right from the beginning, the Universal logo where they're singing the Minion music, where they're singing the music in their Minion ways, it was actually really fun. I mean, you got pumped watching this, and then it starts off, and it takes place in the 60s, and you got a soundtrack featuring 60 songs like The Turtles Happy Together, I'm a Man, You Really Got Me, Mellow Yellow, just all these great, great songs. The new characters are a lot of fun, too. You got Michael Keaton and Allison Janney playing this criminal family on their way to VillainCon. I mean, Sandra Bullock in her first voice role, which is funny because Illumination, apparently they're the place to go if you want to be the first if you want your first voice acting role to be in one of this. Because remember, Al Pacino was going to be the villain in Despicable Me 2, but then they switched him out for Benjamin Bratt. And then later on down the road, you had Harrison Ford in The Secret Life of Pets 2. I don't think I laughed harder at Sandra Bullock in a comedy since Miss Congeniality. She was really funny in this movie. I even liked her husband in this, played by John Hamm, who gets a lot of good laughs, as does Jennifer Saunders as Queen Elizabeth. The comedy overall is really good. I was afraid that the comedy for the film was going to focus mostly on, well, the Minions left for bananas, and they do keep those jokes in there, but they're little. There are only a few times in the film, but they were pretty funny overall. Now, if I didn't have any complaints with the movie, one of them would be that the story really doesn't have a flowing narrative for much of the second half. I mean, for the first half of the movie, you get a simple concept. The Minions are trying to find a new boss to serve. They find their boss in Scarlet Overkill, and they give him the first assignment to steal the crown of Queen Elizabeth. And then through a series of mishaps, she eventually gets the crown, and then it just goes all over the place at that point. There's 3 moments after the climax of the film where they're still trying to take the crown from the Minions, even though we should be wrapping this thing up already, but they're kind of teasing the inevitable meeting of Gru and the Minions, because Gru does show up here as a little kid, voiced by Steve Carell as well. But probably my biggest complaint of the movie is that there is a point where the film just gives up on the story and realizes, oh wait, we still need 40 minutes of story here, so scenes start to get padded out far too often. There's a torture scene, which is funny in its own right, but it goes on way too long. The mob chase scene also goes on way too long. The final climax has too many gotcha moments when you think it's finally over. Is anybody ever getting sick and tired of the, oh no, the main character's dead, even though he clearly will survive at the end cliche? I mean, yeah, I get it. It's something that has to be in every kid's movie, and it was something that was back in the day, too. I mean, Disney did this back in the 80s with, way before that, Snow White, perfect example, Bambi, Oliver and Company, The Great Mouse Detective, Secret of NIMH, Land Before Time. They all did it back then. I'm just getting sick and tired of seeing it in every single kid's movie, man. We get it. You gotta throw that in there, but can you at least be smart with it, please? For the love of God, but... I mean, I know I'm tired of it, but I still really enjoyed this movie. I was really afraid that the movie was going to be rotting and be nothing more of a cash grab, but much to my surprise, it ended up being my favorite film from the studio in general. I mean, they hadn't made a lot of good movies in general up to this point. I mean, Despicable Me was just okay. Hop was kind of mediocre. The Lorax is fucking terrible. Despicable Me 2 is better than the first one. And then there's this movie, and in a way, it kind of begins this new reversal trend for Illumination, because after this, they started putting out some good stuff. They followed this up with The Secret Life of Pets, which was a really good movie. Sing, which was actually a really good surprise. Then Despicable Me 3, which I said before was my favorite in the trilogy, in the series, I guess, since there was a fourth one. And then you had The Grinch, which was actually pretty good. And then there was another one too. I can't remember. Wasn't there one more before COVID happened, or did they wait until after COVID happened? I guess maybe Sing 2. Sing 2 probably came after, was probably the first one they did after COVID came out, because Minions: The Rise of Gru, remember, was supposed to come out originally in the summer of 2020, but they kept pushing it back, and that came around in 2022. And I didn't think that one was that bad overall. And then the Super Mario Brothers movie, of course, Migration. Ever since Minions, they've only had one really bad movie that was not good, and that was Despicable Me 4. But other than that, though, they have definitely reversed course big time, starting with this movie. And it worked because it was funny, it was nicely animated, it captured the 60s nicely. It's a good, fun animated movie that not only works to why the Minions are great characters, but also gives them a lot of great new characters to work off of. Perhaps maybe not one of the best animated movies ever made, but for what was to be expected, I really enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was a pretty good time all across the board. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it, though. Minions is pretty fun, which most of you kids out there who saw it back then probably have already seen it, but that's all I got to say about that one. That's Minions. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is The Gallows, the latest film from Jason Blum, through his production company. It's another one of these found footage movies, and surely the studio of Warner Brothers and New Line are clearly not going to go down the same pathway with the other found footage horror movies and use cheap tricks like, bringing an audience into an advanced screening of the movie and getting their reactions, or, do something stupid like show obvious scenes that are supposed to be scary when they're really not. No studio in 2015 would be that stupid to do just that, right?
Yourselves.
Of course this movie would be stupid enough to do this. Yeah, it's literally falling into the same thing that has been working for them for the last 6 years with Paranormal Activity and The Conjuring and Insidious, but those movies were good. This is not. This movie just falls apart on the stupidest is right from the get-go with those trailers alone, but the whole concept alone is pretty lame. It centers around when 20 years after a horrific accident during a small-town school play, students at the school resurrect the failed show in a misguided attempt to honor the anniversary of the tragedy, and of course, supernatural shit starts happening. Remember the Charlie trend on social media? Yeah, it was because of this movie here. And like I said before, this movie was bad. This movie is fucking terrible. This movie is lame in every single way possible. I mean, for God's sakes, that scene where the girl is looking around, and then you think to yourself that you think there's nothing underneath her neck. That little pause there. That's clearly another shot. Like, it's supposed to be a one-shot scene, but this movie is so cheap and so lazy that it can't even do that. Like, this thing is a disaster of a movie, more so than the actual show that this Charlie guy died from. I mean, this is such a terrible, terrible movie, and I mean, it's a hacky gimmick, right down to the audience reactions. No audience, I guarantee you, watched this movie and had those reactions of the people going like, "Ah, ah," and then everybody's just like, "Oh, I'm covering my eyes because clearly something scary is going to happen here." Nothing happens in this movie. Nothing happens in this movie to warrant a reaction like that, and it's just unbelievable that this movie was so pathetically put together, and that people were stupid enough to go see this movie. Because this was, this wasn't this was a hit, but it's to be expected when you're released by a major studio, and your budget is $100,000. I shit you not. This thing is so cheap, it only cost them $100,000 to make, and made $43 million at the box office. So yeah, it's Devil Inside all over again. While not as insulting as Devil Inside, it's Devil Inside all over again. A movie that was so cheaply produced, but because of major studios behind it, they're putting it in over 3,000 theaters, of course it's going to make its money back. This is the type of movie that will make its money back in no time, and probably will have a life on Blu-ray and DVD, and go on to make sequels, which they did make a sequel in 2019. Well, technically, it was filmed in 2017, but was not released into many theaters, and was quickly gone almost immediately. Has a 0% Rotten Tomatoes too, by the way. And it's what more do you gotta say about this? This is a terrible, terrible film. I'm reading right here. One of the people that gave it a positive review, believe it or not, was Richard Roper, and that's shocking. To see that a guy like Richard Roper, a guy who literally is in his first year on the air, literally talks shit about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and gave it a thumbs down on, so even Roper likes this movie. Gave it 3 stars out of 4. Just, I get it. Get it. Every person has allowed to have its own opinion. The critics are allowed to have a little different opinion, but it's just like, he gives a negative review to Lord of the Rings, but praises this? Just wow, man. I don't know, man. I just found that kind of amusing by looking at the critical response for this. But, not much more to say about this one, but that's The Gallows for you. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, and that is, if these found footage gimmick movies wasn't bad enough, we have another cancer in Tarsem, who's made such pretentious pieces of garbage like The Cell and Immortals and Mirror Mirror. Surely his latest film, Selfless, will not be anything pretentious or anything that reminds you of some much better movies, right?
Selfless, rated PG-13.
Hi Total Recall, hi Gattaca, hi 1,000,006 other sci-fi movies, and hell, we're taking from Tales from the Crypt episodes, the Tales from the Crypt episode directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he directed an episode where an older guy played by Uncle Lewis from Christmas Vacation, switches bodies with a younger person so he can live out to be a younger person in general. If you gotta steal from fucking Tales from the Crypt for this movie, you clearly did not have anything good here. But Ryan Reynolds is probably looking at this and going like, please, for the love of God, Deadpool better be a hit, because I can't keep making shit like this. But in this movie, the film tells the story of a business tycoon and billionaire diagnosed with a terminal illness who manages to save his own life by transferring his consciousness into a new, younger body played by Ryan Reynolds. The billionaire is played by Ben Kingsley, in yet another performance that makes you go, you won an Academy Award for Gandhi 30 years ago, and every movie you have made since then, nearly every movie you've made since then, okay, maybe that's not entirely true. It was mostly stuff after starting with the late 1990s. Because he wasn't Schindler's List, and he wasn't Bugsy too. Those were good movies, but yeah. This is right up there with some of his worst things he's ever done. Sound of Thunder, Thunderbirds, The Love Guru. Actually, no, The Love Guru is the bottom of the barrel for him, but this movie sucks. This movie literally takes from every other sci-fi movie and does nothing new or creative with it whatsoever. And again, just wasting good performances from people like Ryan Reynolds, Natalie Martinez, Matthew Good, Victor Garber, Derek Luke, Ben Kingsley. And, it doesn't give me a good sign of confidence when this was actually a film that was shelved by a studio that shut down and was basically not released by not Focus Features. No. We're going to use this as the launching pad to relaunch Gramercy Pictures, a.k.a. what Focus Features used to be. And yeah, I think this was the only movie Gramercy Pictures 2015 ever put out. But, yeah, it's, and now here's a little bit of some fun information for you here. One of the scenes in this movie, shortly after the film begins, depicts the main character, played by Ben Kingsley, in his elaborate Manhattan apartment. Guess where it was shot at? The 3-story Trump Tower penthouse that served as Donald and Melania Trump's primary residence until 2017. So, yeah, You got Trump on this movie too. So yeah, this thing was destined for failure from the get-go. I mean, this movie is just such a train wreck of a film. I mean, talk about a lazy movie that just fails on every single level possible. I got nothing else for you. Selfless, yeah. Whoever made this movie is entirely selfless because they have no sense of making a good story in general here. And this basically is the final nail in the coffin for Tarsem Singh, who, like I said before, one of the worst directors of the 21st century. Because yeah, The Cell, Immortals, Mirror Mirror, 3 of the worst movies of the last 25 years. And yeah, this one definitely can join that list for certain. Easily. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies. And the next time we meet, we've got a big slate of movies, including the latest film in the MCU, Paul Rudd starring in Ant-Man, from director, I was about to say directed by Edgar Wright, but Edgar Wright was attached at one point, but eventually went to Peyton Reed. But we'll talk about that movie. We'll talk about Judd Apatow's latest film, the romantic comedy Trainwreck, starring Amy Schumer, and also starring I was about to say Paul Rudd, but Bill Hader, and also LeBron James in his first acting role in general, and surprisingly was really good in this. We also have Ian McKellen starring as me and Mr. Holmes. I sincerely apologize for that, but we do have him starring in Mr. Holmes as an aging Sherlock Holmes. But we also have Woody Allen's latest film, Irrational Man. And that's about it. 4 movies to take a look at, so we'll take a look at all of them coming up tomorrow on the show. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. And if you did enjoy this, everything except that bad musical number I just did, but if you did enjoy this, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.